All right. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another Financial Autonomy episode. And we've got another interview for you today, which I'm really excited about. I've got with me Trent Taylor, and he's coming to us from Yakandanda in Victoria. So first of all, welcome, Trent. And how do things look out the window in Yakandanda?
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for having me. And right now we've got sunny skies, green pastures, unlike our friends in New South Wales and Queensland. But looking fantastic. Cattle are feeding. All's good.
I was going to ask you about that because, there's a bit of drought around the country at the moment, but up your way, it's still okay?
Yeah. Well, so we're in northeast Victoria in Staghorn Flat here, and it's beautiful. Yeah, we're very fortunate, 36 inches of rain, and it's come well, and the cattle are feeding. But, geez, my heart goes out to those farmers. They're doing it on a much bigger scale than us. And, the thing about this, with these tragedies, the thing I love about it is that just the generosity that's come. There's trucks at the moment coming from South Australia, from West Australia to help these people, and just the way that people come together when people are in need is just it's inspiration for me, and it's the stories I tell my children. So
yeah, absolutely. Even I've heard of that there's hay coming up from Tasmania even, which is a pretty good effort. So it is fantastic, isn't it? And how because you haven't grown up in Yakandanda, I don't think, have you? How did you end up where you are now?
No, mate, I grew up in Melbourne, and for various reasons I've lived in pretty much every state of Australia bar Tasmania, just through travels and choices in life. And a few years ago we decided to pack everything in, buy a caravan, and show the children Australia while they were young and while they actually listened to us, while we were still relatively cool, Paul.
Yep, understand.
So we travelled for 18 months looking all around Australia, and I was a pilot in the northwest of Australia, and we lived in Perth, and I lived in Queensland and all that. And when we came around and looked everywhere, in the Albury-Wodonga region had the topography. We had the mountains and the flats and the rivers and everything. And it was inadvertently because we chased the sun for 18 months. Then my uncle said, but it's so great in that last few weeks of autumn, and that first cold comes in and putting a fire on, and we've gone, oh, wow, well, that sounds interesting. But it's living all over Australia. This is the only place that I've actually experienced where you've got the 4 proper seasons. So we're coming into spring now, and we can already start to feel a little bit of a difference. But come the 1st of September, you actually start to get warmth. Whereas in Melbourne, where I come from, you might not feel spring till November, and then you'll get a winter day. So, we just love the topography, mate. Mountains and rivers is what we love, and the ocean. We used to live right on the ocean on a big, beautiful beachside house, but we've got over that because it's the mountains and valleys and rivers that we love. So, hence why we chose it, and we all love it.
You're not too far from some good fishing rivers up your way too. You've got the Mitter and the Kiwa, and a few different options up your way too. So,
Paulie Benson on fire, he knows the rivers.
Oh, I do. So, I understand. You're in a nice part of the world for sure. Now, in terms of making a living, I know you've got the farm, but I gather you make $1 out of that, but I don't think that's your main game. So Teach It Forward is your business, as I understand. Tell us a little bit about that and how you come to be running that.
Yeah, well, look, I was a commercial pilot back in the early 2000s, and then we decided to have children, my wife Sally and I, and the more I got into it, I was 6 weeks away from hitting the airlines, and I had to do some commercial airline courses, and I got to sit with a lot of airline and corporate jet pilots for 6 weeks while we all did our exams and the like, and they really told me about their lifestyle. And while it was my lifestyle passion to be a pilot, being a father was more important. And I really came up with, I had a sliding door moment. It was, do I live into the choice of being a pilot in my dreams, or do I live into being a father? And my father died when I was young. And, I think when you don't have that father that you love, you make the choice to be the father that you want to be. So I chose to go down the self-employment route, and after investing over $100K in 3 years of my life and a degree in aviation, I went down the business coaching route and bought a franchise and mortgaged myself up to the hilt. Moved down to Perth from Broome and operated a franchise there for a lot of years. Made some really cool choices, which were accidental. Took me globally, teaching a lot of people around the different parts of the globe. As really, honestly, Paul, as a naive businessman, but just passionate, wanting to, provide a lifestyle for my growing family and providing a future financially in our super. And so I sort of got near the end of that tenure with the franchise, followed through with my commitment and integrity and said, I think the pathway is not going out and trying to get all these new clients. I think it's about joining with accounting firms and enabling them to give them the skills to be able to, teach their clients so that they're not just doing tax compliance, which is a grudge purchase, but helping them help their clients with business growth. And so I made the choice to move away from the franchise and create Teach It Forward. I watched a movie called Pay It Forward with the beautiful Holly Hunt. She is fantastic. And Kevin Spacey and the like. And it's one of the only movies that's brought me to tears. And I just thought it was such a beautiful gesture to be able to pay it forward to the three, and then they passed on to three. And I thought, I think that's great. I don't believe in intellectual property. I think that there's no new truths. You can't go and create an antique business. And I think it's the same with financial acumen and wisdom. And so I thought, well, there's a lot that I've been given by previous mentors. There's the coach franchise with Brad Sugars. He was extremely generous with me, and whatever people think of him, he's very intelligent. And so I thought, well, let's create this business called Teach It Forward, where my whole ambition is to teach what I know, not in a way where they become dependent on me, but on a way that they become interdependent. And so I teach it forward, and my premise is that I'll teach you as a client, and you must teach it onto your clients. So, that was born back in 2004, and what are we now? 14 years later, and it's just, I was born in 2009. I started the franchise in 2004, so it's 2009. So we're 9 years into the Teach It Forward, and it's great. I service accounting firms through Australia and New Zealand and do the odd SME. I did the first 5 years with SMEs and doing that. And, I look back now, Paul, and I go, those choices I made and the generosity and the great results I've achieved with clients, I put that more down to that they probably should have paid me and not me them, because the wisdom they've given me, I'm so grateful for.
Geez, fantastic. I just want to take a step back and unpick that a little bit. Now, as you mentioned, you went to a lot of effort to become a pilot, which is no small undertaking.
No.
But then you've made the call, actually, I'm going to step away from that. Now, I mean, that's no small thing, right? So how long did it take you to decide, I'm going to step away from this, the pilot occupation and try something else? And how did you go about, making that transition, planning for that transition? I mean, I'd imagine there would have been some interesting discussions with your wife around that. How did that move go?
Well, that's an awesome question, because we were living in, picture this, we were living in Broome. We had a new little house there. We had a cracker lifestyle. It was just Sally and I at the time. She was a primary school teacher, and we were finishing work at 3:30. I'd fly back in around 4. We'd walk on Cable Beach every afternoon in our bikinis, and, well, I didn't have a bikini on, Paul, but
I'm glad to hear.
yeah. I mean, occasionally I did, but don't tell the listeners. But it was a great lifestyle. But the culture of that industry wasn't serving my heart. And, we only recently married, and we were talking about children, and we're talking about, well, what sort of parents do we want to be? What sort of father do I want to be? I've had mentors since I was 19 years old as a professional athlete, and so I was aware of goals. I was aware of culture. I was aware of choices. And, I had mentors who had earned millions of dollars, worked big hours, and weren't there for their children, and talked to them about, well, those choices lent to a poor relationship with their children. And because my father passed early and I had an amazing relationship with my mother, I wanted to be an awesome dad, and I knew Sally was going to be the most phenomenal mother. And so we really talked about, well, what choices do we need to make from a career sense so that we can be the parents that were more like Sally's parents and my mum, but also the dad that I wanted to be. And so as I learnt more about, as I got further into the pilot ranks, I was going to be away more. I wasn't going to be there to be able to teach them how to kick a footy, ride a bike and read. And so I then sort of had to weigh up was, well, is that more important to me in my heart and my values, or is pursuing a new career that enables me to have the lifestyle of raising children, being a terrific husband, I try to be, while making money. And the business coaching, there was an ad, I saw it, I had no idea what the hell it was, inquired about it, went through due diligence. Long story short, we fell into place. And the interesting part was that, again, just with that, I developed a very early philosophy when I bought the franchise, because I was young looking and I was fresh and I was keen, I was passionate, and I wanted to be, we'd just newly married, a new baby was coming. And I developed a very clear philosophy that, okay, well, the way I'm going to approach this new business is via two things, and I still hold it today. And that is that I'm always congruent and I'm always curious. So I was always curious, how do I build this business? How do I do this? What do I do? And I still ask questions all the time. And congruent, how do I practice? I won't ever ask a client to do something that I'm not doing myself now or haven't done in the past. And those two things have served me really well. So making the choice to move to this huge investment, the pilot career, my passion as a child, to becoming a business owner was quite simple, because Sally and I really talked about what we wanted as parents in that bigger picture. So not just financially, but from a feeling, from a core value perspective. So that was easy.
Yep.
And then when we got into the business, there was a hell of a lot to learn technically, massive learning path. But I just felt that if I was always honest, I was always congruent, and I was always curious, that would lead me in good place, and it has in a big way. So
certainly. And just something else I wanted to touch on there. So an important element, you've gone from the pilot career, you've wanted to become self-employed, and you've gone the franchise model, which would seem to make a lot of sense insofar as you've got a framework there and a system that, certainly in the good franchises at least, is a proven viable system and a fantastic stepping stone, really. And it seems like in your career, that's the way you've done it. You've come in, you've done the franchise, you've learnt that system, you've learnt how to operate a business and those skills, and eventually that's had a use by date and you've moved on. But it sounds like that was a really important stepping stone to get you to where you are today. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some people say franchises are expensive. And I think, well, that's a very subjective statement, because it's based on what your experience is and what your passion is. So, it was Action International back then, and it was Action Coach, and they had a framework, and that's what I needed. So, there's a lot of people that go into franchises and don't make it well, because, they go in they think they know everything, or they think they need to reinvent the wheel. But I went in there and said, okay, well, I'll follow the system, which I did, but I did to an nth degree and, a little bit differently. But I got myself a coach straight away, because that's what I realized, that the good franchisees had this coach. They, one thing I learned very early on, and I think this will appeal to, the theme of your podcast and to your audience is, before you can earn, you've got to learn. And the only place that learning comes before earning is in the dictionary, which I know is a cliche, but it's something I teach my children. I keep saying, well, learners are earners. And this particular franchise had a very strong strain on education and a very great internal forum. And if you're curious, there was plenty of people who were willing to give advice. So, for people in, your listeners, if they're looking to go into their own business, whether it's self-employed, whether it's franchise self-employed or not, my recommendation to get financial autonomy is be, a 7-year-old. Why? What? Ask questions, because, people are willing to give advice if you're willing to be open and ask the questions. And because I wasn't very financially smart, Paul, it was hilarious. We had to remortgage a property. I had enough for the training, but I didn't have enough money for the franchise. So I actually had to mortgage our first little flat we had. And back then you could go to 95%, which I did.
Right.
So we did that. We got the money, and I was only earning 22 grand as a pilot because I was doing in effect, apprenticeship years. So the financial situation we had was quite funny because it was July 4th, 2004. I flew out to overseas to do my training. And I came back and I realised that I only had 6 weeks working capital. I've gone, holy shit. They told me that it takes 12 weeks to get a client. So there was a really big learning. So therefore, my curiosity had to go through the roof. Luckily for me, after 12 weeks, I had 12 clients. So I think in the first 6 weeks, I'd earned as much as I had made in the last 12 months. So I was lucky in that case. But
yeah, but you make your own luck. I'm sure it wasn't just what you're being modest. I'm sure it wasn't just luck.
Oh no, and I worked hard. I did 7 to 7, 6 days a week, and but I think the moral of the story is if you're going to choose to go from a job to self-employment, whether it be franchise or not, get curious and get curious fast and learn as fast as you can, because learners are earners.
Yeah. And
so I was on the phone, I was reading, I was applying, I was. They said, do this. I got a coach on them in my second week, which I couldn't afford. But I said, look, you just tell me to jump and I'll ask you how high. And I think if people make the choice to be in business, or make the choice to have a financial plan, or make the choice to increase their financial literacy, don't just make that choice and just, take the advice willy-nilly. Ask lots of questions, educate yourself, read books, listen to podcasts. The more you learn, the more you can make better decisions. The more you make better decisions, you can take better actions. The more you take better actions, the more results you can achieve. So,
spot on. Great advice. Now, I know you spoke to me about, so you've gone to from the pilot to the franchise to then doing your own thing and adopted this philosophy of 3-3-3. Which I thought was fantastic. Can you take us through what that means and how that looks like in reality for you?
Yeah, well, thank you. So once I finished the franchise, I was the CEO of our company. We're about a $3 million business. We decided to move over to the East Coast where our family were. Sally's family had come over from Zimbabwe. They relocated to the East Coast. We wanted the children to have grandparents and an active relationship with them, so we moved over. But I was the CEO and a major shareholder, or an equal shareholder of this firm. So I made the choice, and I was going to walk away from the business to give my family that opportunity because I felt I had the skills to do it. And they said, no, we want you to stay CEO. And I'm going, how am I going to run the business in Perth from the East Coast? And so the commitment was I'd be in Perth for a week and in New South Wales for 3 weeks. This was strange. So I had to make that business transparent. I had to work it out. I did over 12 months. Through that journey, it really made me break down a business and be able to look at it of how can I run it remotely, which in that first year, we grew by 33%. And I'm going, geez, how the hell did I do that? And then I decided to leave the franchise, leave the business because, various things happened and I had a different philosophy, and we had our third child. And so I spent 2 days sitting in my office there in Sawtell, just out of Coffs Harbour, and I had a beautiful office and whiteboards and the like. And I had all of my files in these boxes. There was 3 boxes. I pulled them all out, and I said, if I had my time again with these clients over 5 years, what would I do and how would I do it? And I came up with this it was called the 4 buckets. This is what I would do, which turned into, the 8 buckets, which turned into the business spine. And then I thought, well, what would be the lifestyle that would create? So longer story short, I said, well, I'm going to put this in place in my own business first. And then once I get it right, I'll roll it out. So what I came up with is, well, how could I? Because so imagine it now, Paul, I've got 3 young children. So they were pretty much 5, 3 and 1. I was working my butt off. I was flying all over the place, making some good coin, but I just felt I wasn't giving Sally the attention that she needed, because as a young mum, with all that, it's pretty tough. And I said, no, this is not working. So I said, okay, I want to keep my same income. I was making about 300 odd K, but I thought, how can I do this and bring it back to 3 days a week? And Kaizen was about to go into school, and I thought, well, I want to have school holidays off. I want to have the Christmas period off, and it's good to have a holiday outside of that. So I developed 3 days a week, 33 weeks a year, 333K a year. And that's what I went for. So I started rebuilding my business according to my business spine model, which that's what the 4 buckets, 8 buckets business spine became. And it worked. And I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. So then I said, hang on, I've got to test this a bit harder. And again, life changed. We moved to Melbourne for 18 months. We said, stuff this, let's travel Australia while the children are young. So now the children are sort of 4, 6 and 8. So we sold everything up. I was running my business, and we started, and I'd never driven a caravan. I'd never towed a caravan in my life, never even lived in one. And we sold everything up, and we traveled Australia. And I said, right, let's really trial this 333 And it worked. And it actually grew by 11% over the 18 months that we traveled. I'm going, how does that work? So that finished 3 years ago, so 2015, 16. And so since then I've been now helping other business owners do that, because, we can all make millions of dollars, and the like, but what do we give up for it? And so I wrote a book called Have Your Cake and Eat It Too. And the whole philosophy was let's make some good income, but let's also be great husbands or wives, and let's be great parents. Let's have all of those things. And how do you do it? And so I just worked out how to do it. I did it myself. And now I've got a number of clients around Australia and New Zealand who are using the same philosophies and making more money, but more importantly, having more time off. So it's been a really awesome journey.
Congratulations. I mean, it's a fantastic story, and certainly resonates with, the sort of interest in the things that we're trying to explore here. So no, congratulations, and thank you for sharing. I mean, you work with a lot of people, a lot of business owners. What do you think are the most common mistakes that you see that people make, that you're able to, I would imagine often, we can't see the forest for the trees, a lot of business owners, and you need someone external, like you say, where the value of a coach perhaps, to sort of highlight, well, hang on a minute, why are you doing that? Do you need to be doing that? Or I don't know, what are the things you see that you sort of point people in an alternate direction?
Yeah, I think it's a really powerful question you asked there. And, a lot of business coaches to me aren't worth a pinch of poo, because they're trying to teach you technical stuff. They're trying to teach you sales, or they're trying to teach you marketing, or the HR or leadership. And, I think if you break it down to simplicity, I don't consider myself the smartest bloke on the tree, on the planet. My brand promise is that I'll make the complicated simple. So what's the simple way to approach this as a business owner? And I think that business owners make the mistake of trying to learn all the technical stuff before they get clear on what it is they'd love. What would their life look like? So the first step I do with any client is I have a document called a clarity plan. It's a one document Excel spreadsheet with a couple of tabs. And it's called a clarity plan. And what that really says is, well, what do you want? Not what do you want? Where are you at now with time? And I have a series of questions. Where are you at with cash in and out personally? And where are you at with your assets and liabilities? And I say, where do you want that to be in 5 years? It's a one-page, very powerful, very simple document. And through that journey of their first draft to their third draft and getting them to connect the dots, a business owner gets very clear on, well, hang on, they come back to the roots of why did I start this business? Because people only start a business as opposed to being an employee because they either want more choice around their time, like being able to have more time off or work more flexible hours, or they want to have more control over their income they can generate, as opposed to a set salary that their employer, decides. They want to be able to have the freedom or flexibility to make more cash. Or the third thing is typically they want to be a stand for something. There's something they're passionate about. The way they do things in business now, they think is not as good as what could be. So they go, well, I'm going to start my own business with my skill set and deliver this. So what's most important for a business owner, where they make the mistake, is don't worry about your marketing, sales, and all that first. Get clear on where you're at now and what you want to achieve. So what's in your heart. So not, big wanky goals. I want to have $1 million and I want all this sort of gear. What is that lifestyle that you would love to choose that would make you, your partner, your children happy? Not just from a financial perspective, but from a soul perspective, from a love perspective, from a time perspective. Put it all in one and go, okay, that's what it looks like. And once you I think if business owners can actually get honest with that and put it down in writing, not in their head, in writing, they've now always got a reference. So that's the number one tip I would say for someone who's contemplating going to business or someone who's recently made the choice to be a business owner. Stop, document, and get clear on what's the life you'd love to lead. Not the wanky, fluffy stuff, but the real, legit, simple, in a specific numbers place. And do that with your partner and open those conversations. It's a little different from, an FNA, a financial needs analysis of a financial planner. It's not as comprehensive and as deep as that, but it's a great starting point that if you're going to see a financial planner, you can build off that to build the strategies. But a clarity plan is the first place to start, because when a business owner starts a business, in the first 2 years, it's all excitement, enthusiasm. Let's chase that next thing. We're growing. We got all excited. Third and fourth year, you get to a scaled point where all of a sudden now you're doing massive hours. You're making good coin, but the lifestyle's killing you and you're getting hurt, and you've got to hire someone or do that. And then you get those new learnings. So in those first 2 years, it's all the honeymoon. 3, 4, 5 years is whether you either make or break, but the reality kicks in.
Yeah.
When that happens, if you can always come back to that clarity plan and say, hang on, what did I originally want to do here? That is a great tool to use as a decision-making filter, or to use as a compass.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned compass, because there's a workshop that I run around making a transition to self-employment, and the first thing we do is discuss your why, and talk about what's your why. Why is it that you want to go to self-employment? And exactly that. I refer to that as, well, like, this is your north point. And, when you're thinking about future opportunities, you need to refer back to that. And, the decisions you're making now, are they heading you towards that? Because it's, as you say, particularly in those first few years, I mean, every client's a good client, and you jump at every opportunity that comes in front of you, but some of them are taking you away from actually what it is that you're trying to achieve. So, fantastic. Great.
Well, because I think the thing is that, the things we've got in our head, the dreams we've got in our head, don't last. The thing that's in our heart, that's a constant source of energy. So if your passion starts to wane and you start to chase a dollar, it'll only last so long. I've seen it too many times. Whereas, as I've shared in various stories through this podcast to date, I didn't get to have the dad that I wanted. I always got sad because when I saw my mates' dads and I didn't get to kick the footy with them, have that relationship, that was just something that touched my heart. It was inspired. I wanted to be that dad. And to me, making $1 million versus, making 300 grand and having, every afternoon off after school and school holidays off, like to me, that touched my heart. Like I didn't have to get motivated each week to make that choice.
For sure.
Okay, it's just something that I feel, and it's the irony of it is that for new business owners, once you get clear on what you want, share it with your clients. Because I was scared sharing this stuff. I remember when Kaizen was born, I had the business coaching business. I told you I worked 7 to 7, which I did, and then it became actually a bit longer. And I would take calls 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night because I thought I had to serve the client. But we only had one child, but Sally was struggling. She had him all day. She's breastfeeding, running the house. It's a tough gig. Here I am out working, come in for feed, come in for dinner, play with Kai for a bit, and then back to work. And it got to a point where Sally was, almost at breaking point. And I go, hang on, who the hell am I being here as a husband and as a father? This is ridiculous. Mm. And so I said, no, this is not right. So, Sally just needed more support from me at night. And I said, no, it's fair. I mean, I committed to you in marriage. And I committed to you with having a son. So I just made the decision and told my clients, I said, look, I can't take your calls after 5 o'clock because Sally needs me. We've got a newborn. And I was shitting myself. I thought they're going to go, oh, well, stuff you. We don't want you. But they actually said, that's awesome, Trent. We should probably do the same. No, we respect that. And ever since that date back in 2005, no client calls me after 4:30 ever because I made the choice of what was most important in my heart, not chasing a dollar because it'll come back and bite you.
Geez, well done. Hey, so we've been talking a lot about, self-employment and running a business. In your view, is that an option for everyone? Or the reality is not everyone is self-employed. And I wonder sometimes, whether there are plenty of people for whom running a business is not the right option. I'm just interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, look, I think my belief is that human beings have an unlimited potential. So if somebody really wants to be a business owner, no matter what their personality type is, they can be that. The reality is the way that we're raised and the way we're educated, we're not trained to think that way. That comes through external personal development training and the like, So does everyone have the capacity? Yes. Is everyone naturally suited? No, they're not. I see it a lot now in the accounting industry where, the principals and partners of accounting firms are having a real problem with succession planning because these Gen X, Gen Ys, and millennials, coming through, they don't want that responsibility. They don't want that hard work. And quite frankly, a lot of them aren't prepared to do the learning or the change of skills they need to adapt is not really what they want to do. So, I don't think everyone is naturally akin to being a business owner because it's not all beers and Skittles. I think what you've really got to ask yourself if you're going to make the journey from employee to employer or self-employed is how willing am I prepared to learn? How willing am I prepared to upskill? How willing, and this is probably the most important one, Paul, how willing and how fast am I prepared to let go of what I know in the past? Because, it's a completely different ball game. It's like, someone playing country level football and moving to AFL standard. I mean, it's a completely different game. It's a different speed, not initially. And that's why you'll find so many people who've taken the path of being their own business who, in an accounting mentality, they're sole traders, can't crack that $100,000 because while they're great technicians, they're able to deliver the service that they offer brilliantly, way better than most people. They need to develop and open up themselves to learn how to market that and to sell that. There's one of the key things I teach business owners. I do 1-day workshops, 2-day workshops about the 10 hats of running a business. There's actually 11 hats that every single business, doesn't matter how small or how big you are, Every industry, I've proven it. I've delivered this through New Zealand, Australia, and the US. There's 11 hats that you must wear as a business owner. 10 of them you must wear monthly. Some of those you wear 4 or 5 of them every week. Some of them you wear fortnightly. Some of them you wear monthly. But there's 10 hats, which means that you've got 10 lots of skill sets that you need to adapt as you mature through your business. So, for accountants, for example, they're really strong in the operations part of the business, the delivery of the accounting. They have good awareness of the finance side of the business. They resource their business with administrative people. So there's 3 hats they know really well. But in the accounting industry, they're not really good at actually knowing how to direct a business. They're not really good at knowing how to lead a business. They can manage some people, but they don't know how to lead the business as a CEO. They don't have the skills in the marketing area. They don't have the skills in the sales area typically. The HR side of the business, dealing with people, a bit ugly. IT, they're not strong at. Product development, they're not strong at. So that's just one industry. You look at trades, same thing. They're awesome plumbers. They get their wives to typically, or girlfriends, to do the books. Then they hire people, but they're not really looking at how to run the business. Quoting breaks them down, which is the sales side. They're not marketing. It's just talking to Joe Blow and there's a referral because they're free. But actually getting in control of those 10 hats enables you to be able to develop your business. Now, if you're starting a business, you're contemplating starting your own business, and you're not aware of what those 10 hats are and what those skill sets are, you're gonna come to some very quick realizations, and hopefully not too deep in financial pain before you realize that you're going to need the skills of those 10 hats.
Yeah, it's very much in line with the sort of E-Myth type philosophy as well, or observation, I suppose, that, like you say, the example of an accountant, right, who, let's say, is an employed accountant and he's good at accounting and decides, right, I'm going to start my own business. Well, it's a given that you're a skilled accountant, or you wouldn't have decided to start your own business. Like that's basic ticket to the game. But almost inevitably, what they're missing is all the other, as you say, marketing skills and CEO skills and leadership skills and all these sort of things that almost everyone that starts a business is missing it. I remember I come in contact at one point with a business which was a catering business, corporate catering, but the person that started it actually come from a marketing background. They'd never had any background in food, but it was an enormously successful business because they figured, hey, I know the customer and I can hire people to make the food. I don't need to be an expert in making food. And they knew the marketing and they knew those elements, and they were hugely successful. But that's rare. Normally the person that starts the catering company is the cook or the chef, or, they know the food side, but that's kind of the low hanging fruit, isn't it? Which is, to your point earlier.
Yeah, but I think that's it. That you've just illustrated a point that I hope your listeners really grab onto. That's a really fine piece of intelligence. That person who was a marketer who started the catering business, they knew that they didn't know it.
Yep.
So they hired the people who didn't know it. When people go from employer to employee, they think they know it, but they don't know it.
Yeah, great point.
It's a very, very important distinction. So knowing that you don't know how to market or sell or, CEO or HR or IT or product development or whatever, knowing that you don't know that is great, because you can then either go and upskill or you can hire it. But having the awareness first, that's the critical point.
Yeah, quite right. Excellent point. Yeah. All right. Well, look. Thank you, Trent. I've probably taken up more of your time than we planned. You've been very generous. So thank you very much. Now, for the listeners, I mean, you've shared some fantastic wisdom. I'm sure people will want to track you down. So where can they find you?
Well, you can go to the website, which is www.teachitforward.com.au, or on LinkedIn, which Paul and I just had a quick sussing up. Cool. It's on LinkedIn. If you just type in Trent Taylor, and you'll see an ugly head with a hat on. That'll be me, and you can tap in there and have a look there. And if you want to reach out for a call, you're most welcome.
Yep, fantastic. I'm sure plenty of people will take you up on that too. All right. Well, look,
Thank you.
All right. Well, look, wonderful. Thank you again for your time and all your experience and wisdom. And it's a fantastic story that you've shared. So, no, fantastic. All
I
right.
appreciate your time. Thanks, mate.
Beauty. Thanks for that, Trent. Bye-bye.
Take care.